In a society that constantly bombards us with the idea that happiness depends on relationships and external validation, men emerge who choose a different path. They don't desperately seek female companionship to fill emotional voids. Instead, they embrace their own journey of self-discovery and self-discipline, paradoxically becoming more attractive in women's eyes. This phenomenon doesn't happen by chance. There's a profound reason why men who embrace solitude as a conscious choice develop an aura of magnetism that few can explain, but everyone can perceive. It's as if, by ceasing to pursue, they become the pursued. A powerful inversion that challenges the conventional rules of the attraction game. Look around you. How many men do you know who live in a constant search for female validation, who modify their behavior, opinions, and even values, hoping to capture a woman's attention? This pattern repeats endlessly, generating a cycle of frustration and emotional dependence that rarely produces the desired results. Now contrast this with the man who has found peace and contentment in his own company. He doesn't act out of neediness or the need for approval. His decisions are guided by solid internal values and a clear sense of purpose. This man doesn't need a partner to feel complete or validated. And it is precisely this completeness that makes him magnetic to women. What we are witnessing is not a seduction technique or strategy. It is, in fact, the natural manifestation of a state of being grounded in ancient philosophical principles, particularly those associated with Stoicism. This ancient Greek philosophy, developed by thinkers like Zeno of Citium and later refined by Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, offers a perfect conceptual framework for understanding this phenomenon. The fundamental Stoic principle that directly applies to this issue is the clear distinction between what is and what is not under our control. As Epictetus wisely observed in his handbook, some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. When you apply this principle to relationships, a profound transformation occurs. You stop worrying about the reaction, approval, or interest of women, factors completely outside your control, and start focusing exclusively on developing your character, virtues, and inner peace. This shift in focus not only frees you from a constant source of anxiety, but also establishes the foundation for an authenticity that becomes naturally attractive. Think of the stark contrast between two types of men. The first is constantly adjusting his behavior, seeking signs of approval, trying to figure out what he needs to say or do to please. He lives in a perpetual state of insecurity because his self-worth depends on external validation. This man exudes desperation and neediness, qualities that are rarely attractive. The second man, the one who embraces Stoic principles, emanates a quiet confidence that comes from within. He doesn't seek to prove his worth to anyone because his sense of identity is firmly anchored in his internal virtues and his ability to live according to his own principles. He is not shaken by rejection or criticism because he understands that others' opinions do not define who he is. This emotional stability creates an aura of steadfastness that many women find deeply attractive. The emotional independence cultivated by the Stoic man manifests in all areas of life. He makes decisions based on his values and principles, not on the desire to impress or please others. This moral consistency generates predictability and reliability, qualities increasingly rare in a world where many change opinions and behavior according to circumstances. When you develop this independence, something remarkable happens in your interactions with women. You stop overreacting to their small mood swings or behavioral changes. Emotional manipulation tactics that work on needy men simply have no effect on you. If a woman tries to provoke jealousy, create unnecessary drama, or test your boundaries, you remain unshaken, anchored in your principles. This emotional stability represents a significant differentiator in a relationship landscape where male insecurity is rampant. Many men oscillate between behavioral extremes, sometimes being overly available and submissive, other times reacting with aggression and resentment when rejected. The Stoic man, on the other hand, maintains behavioral consistency that conveys maturity and self-control. Observe how this pattern manifests in everyday situations. When a woman cancels a date last minute, the average man will react with visible frustration, bombarding her with messages or demonstrating passive aggressiveness. The Stoic man simply recognizes that her behavior is outside his control, adjusts his plans, and goes about his day without emotional drama. This ability to adapt without destabilization is interpreted as strength, not indifference. Another revealing example. The average man adapts his interests, opinions, and even values to align with what he believes will attract a particular woman. The Stoic man remains true to himself, not out of rigidity or stubbornness, but out of personal integrity. He understands that relationships built on fictional personas inevitably crumble when the truth emerges. This contrast extends to communication. The man constantly seeking female approval tends to filter his words, avoiding controversial topics and agreeing excessively to avoid conflict. His communication is marked by hesitation and indecisiveness. The Stoic man conversely expresses his opinions clearly and respectfully, without fear of disagreement. He doesn't engage in mind games or subtle manipulations. This communicative transparency is surprisingly rare and therefore distinctive. The authenticity emerging from this stance generates much deeper connections when the Stoic man decides to relate. Interactions occur from a place of truth, not calculated performances designed to impress. Women instinctively sense this difference. There's something profoundly refreshing about interacting with someone who isn't constantly trying to sell an enhanced version of himself. Beyond emotional independence and authenticity, the man who embraces solitude as a conscious choice develops a sense of purpose that transcends superficial goals. While many dedicate excessive energy trying to conquer or impress, he invests in meaningful projects, in his intellectual, spiritual, and physical development. This purpose-driven existence generates natural attraction, as women recognize the rarity of men who clearly know who they are and where they are going. In a sea of directionless individuals, the one who navigates with a clear purpose inevitably stands out. It's no coincidence that men passionate about their life missions, fully absorbed in their projects and callings, often attract female interest without conscious effort. Purpose manifests in small and large daily decisions. The mission-oriented man doesn't waste hours on frivolous activities or in the empty pursuit of momentary pleasures. His time is too valuable to be spent without direction. This clarity of purpose is reflected in a structured, productive, and meaningful life, qualities that signal a potentially valuable partner from an evolutionary perspective. This orientation towards purpose is intrinsically linked to another fundamental element in the attraction equation: discipline. The man who lives well in his own company learns to master his impulses, establish productive routines, and persist in his goals regardless of external circumstances. He doesn't seek immediate gratification, but understands the value of continuous self-investment. Think about the visual impact of a man who demonstrates discipline in all areas of life. His physical condition reflects consistency in exercise and diet. His home environment reveals organization and attention to detail. His career shows steady progression resulting from disciplined effort. His mind exhibits knowledge accumulated through regular reading and study. This ability to delay momentary pleasures in favor of larger goals is unconsciously interpreted as a sign of stability and reliability. On a primal level, women recognize that a disciplined man offers greater security and consistency, essential qualities in a long-term partner. In practice, discipline translates into consistent habits that shape a strong character. The morning routine that starts before sunrise, the regular practice of physical exercise regardless of weather conditions, the constant reading that expands intellectual horizons, the meditation that cultivates mental clarity. All these practices demonstrate an unwavering commitment to oneself. Discipline naturally extends to financial management, personal organization, and the ability to keep commitments. The disciplined man rarely finds himself in self-inflicted financial crises or organizational chaos. His life exhibits a solid structure that conveys competence and responsibility, universally valued attributes. It's important to highlight that this discipline doesn't arise from the desire to impress others, but from an internal commitment to personal excellence. The Stoic man seeks constant improvement because he recognizes that character development is the only project truly under his control. This intrinsic motivation, detached from external approval, produces a consistency rarely found in those who discipline themselves only to impress. Another crucial element in this equation is the quality of presence the solitary man develops. Free from the constant distractions and social anxiety that plague many, he cultivates a rare ability to be fully present in the moment. This quality manifests in subtle but powerful ways during social interactions. Observe the stark difference in a conversation. While many men display constant anxiety, interrupting frequently, averting their gaze, compulsively checking their phones, or mentally planning their next comment while the other person is still speaking, the man comfortable with himself exhibits a completely different quality of attention. He maintains genuine eye contact. He listens attentively, without haste or inner agitation. He responds thoughtfully, not impulsively. This quality of presence creates a much deeper connection than any communication technique or forced attempt to impress. Women often report an almost magnetic sensation when interacting with men who demonstrate this capacity for full presence. Comfortable silence is another distinctive marker. The insecure man feels the need to fill every moment of silence with words, often irrelevant or repetitive. The Stoic man is comfortable in silence, intuitively understanding that the spaces between words are as important as the words themselves. This ability becomes increasingly rare and consequently more valuable in a hyper-connected and distracted world. Full presence also manifests in body language. The self-centered man moves with an economy of movement that conveys control and confidence. His movements are deliberate, not nervous or excessive. This quality of movement is unconsciously perceived as indicative of self-mastery and self-control. More profoundly, the quality of presence reflects a mind that is not constantly projected into the future or stuck in the past. The man practicing Stoic principles cultivates the ability to inhabit the present moment, recognizing that now is the only time that truly exists and over which he has some control. This differentiated temporal orientation is perceptible in interactions and creates an impression of rare psychological solidity. Developing this full presence doesn't happen automatically. It's a direct result of contemplative practices, intentional moments of solitude and consistent work of self-observation. The man who embraces solitude as a conscious choice has ample opportunities to cultivate this quality, while those in constant search of distraction and company rarely develop such capacity. This ability to be present naturally extends to the sphere of physical intimacy. The self-centered man brings the same quality of full presence to intimate encounters, resulting in deeply connected experiences rather than ego-driven mechanical performances. The difference is immediately noticeable and frequently commented on by partners. Beyond the qualities already mentioned, the man who values solitude develops a sharper perception of interpersonal dynamics. Not being constantly distracted by the need for external validation, he cultivates superior emotional intelligence, identifying signs of manipulation, emotional games, and toxic behaviors with greater clarity. This refined perception functions as a natural filtering system that protects him from potentially harmful relationships. The average man, driven by emotional neediness, often ignores obvious red flags, entering relationships that eventually prove destructive. The Stoic man, free from this desperate need, can evaluate potential partners with greater objectivity. I often observe how emotionally needy men are easily manipulated by superficial displays of interest or affection. A kind message, a well-placed compliment, or a vague promise of the future is enough to completely blind them to behavioral inconsistencies or signs of questionable character. The man who has found contentment in his solitude rarely falls into these emotional traps. This superior discernment doesn't result in cynicism or generalized distrust. On the contrary, it enables a deeper appreciation of genuinely nourishing relationships when they arise. Free from the desperate need for any connection, the Stoic man can choose relationships that truly add value to his already complete life. Here we reach a crucial point. The man who embraces solitude does not reject relationships. He simply recognizes that healthy relationships are formed by two whole individuals choosing to share their lives, not by fragmented individuals seeking completion through another. This fundamental understanding completely transforms the relational dynamic. When you approach potential relationships from this position of inner wholeness, interactions take on a completely different quality. You don't seek to convince, impress, or conquer. You simply present yourself authentically, allowing the connection to develop naturally or not. This absence of pressure and expectation creates a space of freedom that paradoxically makes connections more likely. The central irony of this dynamic is that the man who genuinely doesn't need a relationship to be happy becomes the ideal candidate for truly satisfying relationships. This happens because he doesn't project unrealistic expectations onto his partner. He doesn't expect her to fill emotional voids, heal past wounds, or be responsible for his happiness. The result is a relationship free from the excessive emotional pressures and demands that often stifle attraction and spontaneity. Two self-contained individuals choosing to share their individual journeys create a type of relationship rarely seen, based on wanting, not needing, on giving freely, not desperately extracting. But how do you begin to cultivate these qualities that make solitary men naturally more attractive? The process starts with a fundamental reassessment of your relationships, not just with women, but with yourself and with the very idea of solitude. The first step is to distinguish between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a negative emotional state marked by feelings of isolation and disconnection. Solitude, on the other hand, is a consciously chosen state of being with oneself, often resulting in mental clarity, increased creativity, and emotional renewal. The Stoic man doesn't fear solitude. He embraces it as a tool for self-development. Start by incorporating regular periods of intentional solitude into your life. This could mean solitary walks in nature, meditation sessions, time dedicated to reading, or simply moments of silent contemplation. The goal is not social isolation, but cultivating a comfortable relationship with your own company. During these moments of solitude, practice non-judgmental self-observation. Notice how your mind often seeks distraction or company when confronted with silence. This internal restlessness reveals emotional dependencies that may be negatively influencing your relationships. By observing these patterns without immediately reacting to them, you begin to develop the emotional self-control that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Concurrently, develop a clear sense of purpose that transcends romantic relationships. Ask yourself, if you were never to be romantically involved with someone again, would your life still have meaning and direction? If the answer is no, there's a fundamental imbalance that needs addressing. Identify projects, causes, or vocations that spark your genuine passion. Develop skills that provide intrinsic satisfaction. Cultivate interests that expand your intellectual horizons. Engage in activities that contribute positively to your community. The goal is to build a life so rich and meaningful that a relationship becomes a choice, not a necessity. Discipline enters as an essential element in this process. Establish daily routines that strengthen body, mind, and spirit. Regular physical exercise not only improves your physical appearance, but also increases levels of well-being-associated neurotransmitters, reducing emotional dependencies. Consistent reading expands your understanding of the world and provides valuable perspectives on the human condition. Meditation cultivates emotional stability and mental clarity. Also adopt the Stoic practice of visualizing adverse scenarios. Imagine yourself facing rejections, breakups, or long periods without romantic partners. By contemplating these possibilities with equanimity, you gradually remove the fear that often drives dependent behaviors. This practice, known as premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils, was central to the ancient Stoics precisely because it strengthens emotional resilience. An often overlooked but fundamentally important area is the development of deep and meaningful male friendships. Many modern men invest all their emotional energy in romantic relationships, leaving them vulnerable to loneliness when these end. Cultivate genuine connections with other men based on shared values, common interests, and mutual support. Simultaneously, consciously work to eliminate behaviors that signal emotional dependence in your interactions with women. Identify patterns like constantly seeking approval, excessively agreeing even when you internally disagree, making yourself constantly available regardless of your own plans, or reacting disproportionately to small displays of interest or disinterest. Replace these behaviors with a more centered and authentic presence. Express your opinions honestly, even when they differ. Maintain your personal commitments and time boundaries. Respond to messages when it's convenient for you, not immediately upon receiving them for fear of seeming disinterested. Small changes, like these, signal self-control and emotional independence. Another crucial aspect is developing comfort with silence and pause. In conversations, practice listening fully without planning your next line. Allow moments of silence without the compulsion to fill them. Observe how this quality of communication creates much deeper and more meaningful connections. Remember that developing these qualities is not a short-term project or a seduction strategy. It is a fundamental transformation of character that requires consistent commitment to Stoic principles like self-discipline, moderation, courage, and practical wisdom. The results in terms of increased attractiveness are a natural side effect, not the primary goal. As you internalize these principles and practices, a remarkable transformation occurs. You stop approaching interactions with women from a position of need or scarcity. You no longer obsessively worry about conquest techniques or signs of interest. You simply present yourself as you are, offering your best version without rigid expectations about the outcomes. This approach, free from attachment to outcomes, a central principle in Stoicism, creates an atmosphere of lightness and authenticity that radically contrasts with the desperate intensity many men bring to their interactions with women. This quality of detachment, paradoxically, makes you much more attractive. Observe how this transformation affects not only your romantic interactions, but all areas of your life. You become less reactive to criticism, less shaken by rejection, less influenced by others' opinions. Your professional relationships improve, your productivity increases, your physical and mental health strengthens. These secondary benefits often surpass the advantages initially sought in the romantic field. It's important to emphasize that the ultimate goal of this journey is not to manipulate women or accumulate conquests. The true purpose is to develop a virtuous character and a fulfilling life that naturally attracts people, romantically or otherwise, who resonate with your values and energy. The Stoic man seeks excellence as an end in itself, not as a means to win external approval. Throughout this process, you will discover a profound truth that the ancient Stoics already understood. The only genuine form of freedom lies in mastering your own reactions, desires, and aversions. When you no longer depend on female validation for your sense of worth and identity, you experience a profound liberation that few contemporary men know. This internal freedom creates the conditions for genuinely satisfying relationships should you choose to have them. Free from desperate need, you can select partners compatible with your values and life vision, instead of settling for anyone who shows the slightest interest. You can establish healthy boundaries without fear of losing the relationship. You can express your needs authentically without manipulation or emotional games. The final message is clear and powerful. True masculine strength lies not in the quantity of conquests or external validation, but in the ability to build an inner fortress that remains unshaken regardless of circumstances. This is the essence of the Stoic man, one who understands that the only real control he possesses is over his own actions, thoughts, and responses to the world. And it is precisely this quality that, paradoxically, awakens female interest and admiration in a profound and lasting way. Not because you actively seek that admiration, but because you embody genuinely admirable qualities. Not because you pursue, but because you naturally attract through your way of being in the world. At the end of this journey of self-discovery and self-mastery, you will not only become more attractive to women, you will become the kind of man who can genuinely contribute to a healthy and balanced relationship. Not a man seeking to be filled, but one overflowing with his own wholeness. Not one who fears solitude, but one who has found in it the path to his true strength. This is the transformation that Stoic principles offer, from dependence to independence, from scarcity to completeness, from reactivity to stability. And along this path, you will discover that true attractiveness is not something you do, but something you are. Not an external performance, but an internal reality that naturally manifests in all your interactions. The invitation is made. The path is clear. The choice, as the Stoics always emphasized, is entirely yours. You can continue seeking external validation and approval, pursuing ever more elaborate techniques and strategies in the hope of filling an internal void. Or you can embark on the journey of self-discovery and self-mastery, transforming yourself into the kind of man who naturally attracts what he desires precisely because he doesn't depend on it for his completeness. Solitude, when consciously embraced, is not a state of lack or isolation. It is fertile ground for personal growth, a laboratory for character development, a sanctuary for communion with oneself. And the man who learns to comfortably inhabit this space develops without conscious effort, a presence that naturally draws others into his orbit. This is the final and most powerful paradox. The less you need others to feel complete, the more others desire to be in your presence. The less you seek approval, the more naturally it comes to you. The less you pursue, the more you are pursued. This is the transformative alchemy that occurs when you truly embrace Stoic principles and find peace and contentment in your own company. The path lies before you. The choice is yours. And whatever your decision, remember the words of Marcus Aurelius. Very soon you will be dead and forgotten, and yet you are not yet simple, nor undisturbed, nor free from suspicion that external things can harm you, nor kindly disposed towards everyone, nor convinced that wisdom consists only in acting justly. Life is short, time is precious, and no external relationship, however gratifying, can replace the inner journey of self-discovery and self-discipline that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It is through this inner journey that you will discover not only greater attractiveness in women's eyes, but something infinitely more valuable, a life well lived on your own terms, independent of external circumstances. This is the final invitation of Stoicism, not just to improve your attractiveness, but to completely transform your relationship with yourself and the world. Accept this invitation, embark on this journey, and discover for yourself the transformative power of a life lived in harmony with timeless Stoic principles. The result will not only be greater success in relationships, but a more meaningful, centered, and fulfilling existence in every sense. The final paradox remains. The man who least needs a partner to complete him becomes precisely the kind of man every woman desires by her side. Not out of dependence or need, but out of a conscious choice based on shared values and mutual admiration. This is the essence of authentic attractiveness that emerges naturally when you embrace solitude as the path to self-knowledge and self-mastery.